What do you think about Priyanka Vadra's Ladki Ladh Sakti Hoon poll campaign in Uttar Pradesh? I know I am late on this issue by a few weeks. I feel compelled to revisit it in this episode of Politically Correct after actually watching Priyanka's discomfort when she was asked about the Congress party's chief ministerial candidate the other day. Do you see anybody else's face? You can see my face everywhere. That was what she said on Friday when she was asked about it. The next day she clarified that she had said that in irritation because of persistent questions about it. Well, I really wonder why people ask this question from a party that secured just about 6 to 7% of votes in the last three elections, both parliamentary and assembly. You know, in 2019 Lok Sabha election, in 2019, in fact, the Congress's vote share was just a little over 6%. Then in 2017 assembly election, 2014 parliamentary elections, the Congress's vote share has hovered between 6 and 7%. So it must be irritating for Priyanka Gandhi when people ask her about the party's chief ministerial candidate. One can understand that. The Congress has been reduced to 3 MLAs in UP, down from 7 in 2017. Most of its former legislators have deserted it. In her heart of hearts, Priyanka Gandhi must know the Congress's poll prospects in Uttar Pradesh. If that is the case, you may ask me, why am I discussing Priyanka's women-centric poll campaign in UP? After all, she has been promising the moon to women. 40% reservation in government jobs, 25% of police posts, 50% PDS shops, phones, scooters, you name it. That is Women's Manifesto for Uttar Pradesh. Her choice of candidates has also created quite a lot of buzz. A rape victim's mother, an ex-Miss Bikini India winner, and a TV anchor among others. You may say it's easy to promise the moon because the Congress must come to power to fulfill it, and it won't come. Why not promise the same in Uttarakhand, Punjab or Goa? You may also say that the choice of candidates shows that the Congress has few takers among potential winners in UP, and so it can afford to experiment with the candidates. The fact is, I'm not here to discuss the Congress's poll prospects in UP. I got curious about Priyanka's women-centric poll campaign because it's a first in a long time. Women's rights and empowerment are seldom the exclusive focus of a party's poll campaign. Usually every party offers something or the other to woo women voters. Every politician speaks about their empowerment in the election speeches. But which politicians or parties go to polls with women's issues at the center of their poll campaign? That's what makes Priyanka Vadra's poll pitch in Uttar Pradesh interesting. I have also chosen Priyanka Vadra's Ladki Ladh Sakti Hoon campaign you may say, to pick on the BJP today in the context of its male-dominated power hierarchy. Let me share with you some data points, for instance. See, there have been about a dozen BJP national presidents in the past 41 years, since 1980 when the BJP was founded. Well, all of them were males. There have not been a single woman BJP president. In the 30-member union cabinet, and I'm talking about union cabinet, there are only 2 women. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman and Women and Child Development Minister Smriti Irani. There is not a single woman among a dozen BJP chief ministers today. Among 7 deputy chief ministers that the BJP has in different states, there is just 1 woman, that is Renu Devi in Bihar. Then you come to, the 7-member all-powerful parliamentary board of the BJP, the apex decision-making body of the party. It's an exclusively male domain. Then you talk about, there are 36 chiefs of states and union territories. I'm talking about the BJP chiefs. Out of them, there is just 1 woman, that is Sharda Devi of Manipur. So, why is the BJP's power hierarchy so lopsided when one talks about gender? The fact is that the Modi factor might have swung women voters for the BJP, but the party has done precious little to make it a party of their choice. Women are grossly underrepresented in the BJP's organizational hierarchy. No matter how much PM Modi showcases women-centric government schemes, say Ujjwala and Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, I mean, this is the hierarchy you have got. The BJP may not be bothered about the underrepresentation of women in its organizational decision-making hierarchy, as long as PM Modi remains the star attraction. But the party needs to imagine what will happen to it when PM Modi decides to hang up his boots. Whenever it happens, we don't know. That's food for thought for the BJP leadership that has been doing more tokenism when it comes to gender representation in its power hierarchy. That's where Priyanka Vadra's women-centric experiment in politics can also be a game changer for the Congress. I mean, it's hypothetical, but yes, it has the potential. Because we have talked about the hierarchy in the BJP and how it's totally male-dominated, it does not go totally unnoticed. You know, India has come a long way when it comes to women's stakes in our democracy. You know, in the run-up to the first election, I'm talking about 1952, the first chief election commissioner then, Sukumar Singh, I mean, he was outraged, quote unquote, he was outraged about the practice of, you know, women registering themselves in the electoral rolls as, you know, A's mother or B's wife, I mean, somebody's mother or somebody's wife. So he directed all officials to put women's names in place of mere description of such voters. Some 2.8 million voters, and in those times, I'm talking about 1952, there were about 160 million voters. And then when, you know, the women's names were being used in the electoral rolls, about 2.8 million voters, women voters, got left out. You know, their names had to be struck off the roll, the electoral list. And I'm quoting, you know, many of you must have read historian Ramchand Guha's India After Gandhi, and there Ramchand Guha is saying, you know, after what the then Chief Election Commissioner did, he is saying, and I'm quote unquote, the resulting furore over their omission was considered by Sukumar Sen, to be a good thing, for it would help the prejudice vanish before the next elections. And this is what Guha is saying in his book, India After Gandhi. In the you know, because we are talking about how India has come a long way, you know, in the last Lok Sabha election in 2019, as Chief Election Commissioner Sushil Chandra has said in one of the webinars recently, he says, after 7 decades and 17 Lok Sabha elections since India's independence, women voter participation at 67.18% in 2019 election. Women participation at 67.18% outmatched male participation at 67.01%. It's at this milestone that, you know, Priyanka is trying to start a new phase in her party's, I would say, attempts for revival. I mean, it's easy to diss out another Gandhi idea, you know, it's pretty convenient. Talking about women's empowerment is old wine in a new bottle, one would say. Yet, Priyanka's women-centric poll campaign seems to be a good counterweight to BJP's poll campaigns, which are usually built around muscular nationalism and aggressive Hindutva. You know, Rahul Gandhi and his party colleagues, you know, they have shown an utter lack of political imagination as they try to engage with the BJP. They try to emerge as a bigger Hindu than a Modi or a Yogi Adityanath, for instance. Their attempts to snatch the nationalism plank from BJP have been rather ill-conceived and naive, I would say. As the BJP keeps shifting the goalposts, Congress leaders have been left huffing and puffing. You look at their reactions, that's how it looks like. It is in this backdrop that Priyanka Vadra has come up with a women-centric poll plank in UP, built around this slogan, Ladki Hoon, Ladh Sakti Hoon. As it is, the Congress no longer has the allegiance of any social group actually, with its traditional support base among Dalits, upper castes and tribals gone. The OBCs are kind of a split between the BJP and regional outfits. Minority communities are no longer pinning their hopes onto the Congress. The Congress can only hinge its hopes on these groups' disillusionment with their current political patrons, say the BJP or the regional players. I mean, in a nutshell, the Congress today has no vote bank of its own today, except for what you may call nowhere to go voters. So can Priyanka Gandhi's women gambit be a new beginning for the Congress beyond UP 2022? Well, I'm saying beyond UP 2022 because given the kind of organizational disarray the Congress is in UP, you don't really have Congress cadres on the ground. I mean, there is nobody to actually take the message forward. So you don't really see any Congress cadres on the ground now. So will this campaign, it may not do much in UP, but can it get resonance beyond UP 2022, especially given what the opposition parties, the Congress's political adversaries I'm talking about. Say we have talked about this male-dominated power hierarchy in the BJP. Let's look at other parties. It's not much different. You may have, say, one Mamata Banerjee here and another Mayawati there, but otherwise, most of the parties are totally male-dominated, especially when it comes to their power hierarchy. Will Priyanka succeed? Not in UP, but beyond that. Can Congress actually build on it and get some dividends out of it in future? Well, I don't know. Only time will tell. And that's all I have in this episode of Politically Correct. Thanks for watching.